Hello and welcome to all. Arm wrestling is a sport most often practiced between friends and consists of determining which of the two participants is stronger. And like any other sport, arm wrestling requires expertise and a lot of daily training. But did you know that there are nowadays professionals in this activity? Probably not. Today, you will, therefore, discover the origin of arm wrestling, the rules that govern this sport, and above all, you will discover the life and training of the two champions Alex and Aleksander Toproll, who never cease to fascinate by their extraordinary strength. Would you like to get to know these young men that no one can beat in arm wrestling? Then make yourself comfortable. Here they are. The origins of arm wrestling. Arm wrestling is a practice far from being born yesterday. The first traces of this activity actually date back to the 2nd millennium BC. In fact, a painting found in an Egyptian tomb is a fairly clear representation of this practice, which seemed to occupy an important place in society. After crossing the ages, the arm wrestling later found itself in the land of the rising sun, where it was widely developed from 1793 onwards. Known in Japan as hand-to-hand, this practice was intended to work the strength of each combatant to better prepare for war. And for a good reason. The stronger the forearm, the stronger the arm's muscle chain will be. The goal was therefore to have a firm enough arm to better handle the sword or saber. It was also assumed that if a person could beat an opponent in arm wrestling, he would probably be able to beat him in a sword fight. However, some historians offer other versions of the origins of arm wrestling as a sport. They believe, and not without a reason, that the sport was not really born until the 19th century among the American Indians. Discovered by settlers on the frontiers of the New World, this game was, in fact, declined in a standing version and visibly more fun. This form of arm wrestling, which had to be played with arms and legs tied together, consisted of knocking the opponent down. Quite original, isn't it? Still, the sport was not really popularized until the middle of the 20th century in the United States when small competitions between amateurs were organized. Indeed, it was in 1977 that arm wrestling was officially recognized as a sporting activity. And it was only in 2001 that the first edition of the Zloty Tur World Cup took place, a high-level competition where every year nearly 200 participants from 6 continents compete against each other. Arm wrestling, a real sport. As a result, arm wrestling, much more than just a challenge between friends, has been a real competitive sport for several years now. Moreover, there are now several championships in France as well as in the rest of the world. All are governed by the World Arm Wrestling Federation. Currently, more and more countries are joining the WAF every year. In 2018, the World Federation will have 81 countries around the world. However, the practitioners of sports arm wrestling, called arm wrestlers, are quite discreet in France, unlike Russia or the United States where it is a very popular sport. Even better, it is the most popular discipline in Eastern European countries. What's more, in Sweden, children are even introduced to it at school. Which is really amazing. Moreover, it is known that this sport, as complex as it is fascinating, is for everyone, men, women, juniors, seniors, and veterans. Practiced with both right and left arm, arm wrestling can be represented by all sizes and morphotypes. There are also weight categories, age categories, and hand sports categories. The rules of arm wrestling. Like any sport, arm wrestling is governed by precise rules and is practiced on a table approved by the World Arm Wrestling Federation. Indeed, the confrontation takes place on a 102 cm regulation table made up of several zones, 2 cushions intended to put the elbow on it, 2 handles held by the hand that does not fight, and 2 lateral zones. However, all these elements are not there by chance. They have been designed in such a way as to reduce the risk of injury as much as possible. But that's not all. For a fair start, the opponents must have a specific position before starting the match. Hands must be in the center of the table, the thumb joint must be visible, wrists must be straight and shoulders must be parallel to the table. If the referee judges that the position is not correct, he may decide to place the hands himself. Once the position is correct, the referee gives the start. This is where it all comes down to the opponents. Nevertheless, they will still be subject to several rules as they will not be allowed to lift their elbow from the cushion, to get out of it, or even to let go of the grab handle as this would be a fault. If it happens, the referee will be forced to stop the match to give a new start. And if another foul is made by the same contestant, then the referee will tie the hands of the opponents with a strap before restarting the match. Before we continue this video, here's the question of the day: which professional arm wrestling competitor is considered the best of all time? Is it Option A, John Brink? Option B, Jack Dempsey? Option C, Gennady Golovkin? Write the right answer in the comments and we'll see at the end of the video if you were right. The life of Alex and Aleksander Toproll. Thus, this sport has been able to develop to the point where, nowadays, there are real arm wrestling champions. The proof is in the brothers Alex and Aleksander Toproll. They have become true stars throughout the world. Thanks to their surprising ability to win all fights, these young men occupy a very important place in this sport. Why is that? Well, here is the reason. Alex and Aleksander Toproll, better known as Toproll, are Russians living in New York, USA. They borrowed the name Toproll because it simply refers to arm wrestling. Indeed, Toproll is one of the 3 most used techniques to win an arm wrestling match. It consists of pulling the opponent's hand towards you by using the pronation force to open your fingers and wrist. The other 2 techniques are the hook and the press. The first uses palmar flexion to hook the opponent's hand, and the second technique involves crushing the opponent's wrist using the force of supination and the triceps. Unsurprisingly, Alex and Aleksander use the Toproll technique very frequently to win most of their victories. Passionate, the 2 brothers do everything to become one-day world champions in arm wrestling, and they might just do it. Indeed, according to the videos published on their YouTube channel, entitled TV Arm Wrestling, Alex and Aleksander are almost unbeatable. Alex and Aleksander are unbeatable. Aleksander, now 20 years old, does not seem, at first glance, to have much expertise in arm wrestling. Wearing his glasses, and most often a cap and a t-shirt, Aleksander looks like a young schoolboy. And yet, he is also a real champion in arm wrestling in the junior category. This is no surprise to those who face him in the street. Indeed, Aleksander and his brother tend to install quite often an arm wrestling table in order to face the passers-by. For example, in a video posted on their network, Aleksander can be seen standing in Union Square, New York, holding a piece of paper that says, "Beat me in arm wrestling and you'll get $10. Soon several people wanted to try their luck. But they had no idea that Aleksander was unbeatable. And yes, unfortunately for them, the young man was, each time, victorious even if he did not have oversized muscles. The reason? Well, arm wrestling is not a sport that tests one's strength, far from it. To win a match, you need to have the technique and above all good speed. Strength comes last, in support. As a result, the young man beat his opponents with remarkable ease and in record time, usually 1 or 2 seconds is enough for him. Aleksander is truly impressive, especially since this sports activity seems to amuse him a lot even in the middle of the matches. Indeed, he can be seen smiling several times as his opponents scramble to beat him. These are all sequences that are as surprising as they are comical. However, these street fights are not organized without a reason. Their purpose is to promote the sport while teaching the basic rules to those who volunteer. That's why the Toproll brothers don't necessarily take part in every street match. On the other hand, if Aleksander has an outstanding ability to beat anyone, his brother, Alex, also has an amazing technique to beat all his opponents, including bodybuilders who are twice his size. Moreover, Alex has been able to win a multitude of official competitions. Today, he is recognized as a professional arm wrestler in the senior category. Nevertheless, how could the Toproll brothers have reached such a level of expertise, would you say? Well, it takes years of training and a lot of perseverance. What do they do to stay on top? In fact, Alex and Aleksander Toproll have been training together for about 6 years. So, for their training, they can go to the gym as well as play a few games against other amateur or professional arm wrestlers. At the gym, thanks to the countless videos on their YouTube channel, you can see exactly how the brothers train to always be at the top. Like all arm wrestlers worthy of the name, Alex and Aleksander specialize in training the wrists, forearms, biceps, shoulders, and fingers because these parts of the body must form a single block. To do so, the 2 young men use very specific equipment. This allows them to strengthen the tendons and work on muscle strength without worrying about volume. Over the years, Alex and his brother have become exceptional arm wrestlers. Besides, the Toproll brothers organize matches to improve their technique. In such matches, Alex and Aleksander face off against people of Herculean strength. And despite this, in most cases, the brothers win the match. It is quite extraordinary. However, daily training is not enough for the two young men. They have opted for very strict diets to improve their skills, which are obviously already highly developed. It must be said that these two young men have something to impress. Now it's your turn to comment on your opinion of arm wrestling as a sport. Otherwise, it is John Brink who is considered the best professional arm wrestling competitor of all time. I hope that many of you found the right answer.